Welcome to E-commerce with Coffee, a podcast powered by Amber Engine, where we share e-com secrets for brands over your favorite brew. We start with the caffeine and then leap enthusiastically into behind-the-scenes e-com insights that led to the success of our guests. I'm Nate Svoboda, and I'm about to serve you up the best. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to E-commerce with Coffee. Today, I get to speak with Tim Kakir. He is a growth consultant for brands and tech companies. He also teaches at two universities in Barcelona, where he lives. He's worked with tons of startups over the years. We're going to talk about some of those specific experiences that he's had, but really focusing today on how companies need to be restructuring or structuring themselves to be competitive moving forwards with digital commerce. So Tim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nate. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, really excited for what we're going to chat about today. But before we dive into it, you're a busy guy. And you live in a part of the world where they have some of the best coffee ever. I imagine caffeine must play some role in your life.
100%. I actually, in Black Friday, I made a good investment, and I finally got a proper semi-automatic machine that, like, I remember I had in my office a few years ago. I think it's a bit too industrial for the house setting, but you know what? I love good coffee, so now I can just buy beans and no more capsules, no more of that stuff. So I buy a very strong beans, and I love my coffee 100%. But I try to limit myself, Nate, 2 coffees a day.
Yeah, honestly, I've recently started doing the same kind of thing, but do you just normal pour over? Do you make espresso? How do you like to make the coffee?
Yeah, what we call here is café con leche, which is, coffee with milk. I'll foam the milk up a bit, and then I'll put my coffee, a double espresso in it. But also another trick that I found out, Nate, if I may share, is that I don't have coffee the first 2 hours of me waking up.
Okay. Interesting. I feel like I've heard other people say that before. Is there a reason? Like what?
Yeah, 100%. There's a massive reason, and it works. So I had this theory, or somebody had this theory, and they said test it out, and I did. So basically, when I was going into office before, first thing was coffee, or in the morning was coffee, and so on, and I realized I was having 3, 4. Maybe 5 coffees to get me going throughout the day. And then somebody said about your circadian rhythm. And I have this ring, right, with the Oura ring. So I started to really track my sleep, my patterns, my energy levels, and so on. And I realized when I don't have coffee, it takes about 2 weeks, obviously, of doing it. If I don't have coffee the first 2 hours, I have at least one natural circadian rhythm that goes through, and then I can start having coffee. So what does that mean is that after lunch or in the evening, I don't have these dropouts, where I have the energy going down anymore. And 2 coffees is more than enough throughout the day.
See, it's interesting. I've been having some trouble sleeping recently, so maybe I need to try that out. I may run a trial the next 2 weeks, and I'll get back to you, Tim, on what I
Yeah, please keep me updated on that one. And no coffee after 4 p.m. That's for me.
Yeah, no, that's another thing that I gotta help myself with. I just love coffee, man. It's an automatic reaction, right? And I don't work in an office anymore, so I don't need to do that. Well, diving into what we're actually meant to talk about today, I gave a little bit of an intro, but do you mind talking a little bit about yourself, the work you do, and really how you partner with the brands that you support?
Yeah, of course. What I do basically is I call myself a growth consultant. Why do I call that? And I want to clear this out because people sometimes think it's growth marketing, growth hacking, or something like that. I used to do that. I don't do that anymore because I looked at my background was in sales. My first career was in sales. Then it was in marketing. Then a little bit of product, and then I got really into operations. And by putting that together, I call it growth consultancy because I don't look at growth just from marketing or just from sales. I look at growth from having the product, have a great onboarding. I also now started a new company more on the talent side of things, and I look at growth by making sure that we have the right people at the right place with the right tools, with the right processes, the right goals. They will grow your company. right? Your goal as a founder or as a leader is to facilitate this for everybody, so that you can really create a great work environment and make sure that you give the right tools to your team members, and they will grow your company if you do this all these steps that I mentioned intentionally. And this is why I call myself a growth consultant. My main kind of industry is B2B SaaS and the tech companies, but I've gone myself into e-commerce, and I love e-commerce. I've had the chance to be the chief growth officer of a quite a big e-com, which was called Planet of the Vapes. That was a really good experience. And before that, I was in the tech space, but for e-commerce. So we were building products for e-commerce. So it was really interesting to switch to helping e-commerce brands with their growth as well. And that's kind of what I do. And how the partnership looks like usually is I coach, I consult, I advise. So I have different types of partnerships with my clients. If I really believe in a brand, usually we go more in an advisory role and so on, and I'll take a little part of it if that's what we discuss with the client. If not, on the consultancy, I do monthly packages on a 3-month minimum and giving certain hours of my time. Sadly, I give hours of my time, which I really don't like to put things in hours. But I haven't found a better way to do that yet. And the one thing that I realized, the hour has been working for the last 5 years really well, because we don't calculate things in hours, but at least you get a chunk of my time a month where I can really focus to your brand with you. And usually I focus a lot on the founders and team members, and not just the brand itself, but making sure that they have the power to grow that brand.
Right. And, and I'm sure this has changed over time. What size of company do you generally focus on? Do you focus primarily on startups, or does it vary?
Yeah, so on the B2B SaaS side of things, I was really into early stage startups, but then I really found the sweet spot was before round A investment or round B investment, because what companies want to do for their investors, or they want to look good, first of all. So I help them with data, dashboards, tooling, processes, SOPs and stuff like that. But also they want to make sure that they're going to hit those targets that they've put together with their investors, or that they're going to give some goals to the investor. They're going to say, like, we want your money because this is what we're going to achieve. So I really am able to help my clients there on a B2B SaaS kind of tech companies. But on e-commerce, what I realized, it's really a range. I've had e-coms of 5 people. I've had e-com of 47 people. So the size of the team. I've seen yearly total revenue up to $28 million, and starting at really $100K a year, right? So I usually love that growth period, because especially the first 3 months of our partnership, you will really see a good spike very quickly. And then if you continue the tooling, the process that we've done in 12 months, usually we've I don't want to say this because it happened a couple times, but it can happen. We can 10x the revenue.
Oh, absolutely. And you're saying it like it's happened before, right? It's not an expectation to go
into,
into,
right? It's not
but
all
it's
the
a
time.
possible. Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. I want to latch onto something you said pretty early on, about growth hacking being something that's talked about a lot, but you focus more on the strategic component, right? It's not about what are these little hacks that we can use to grow in the moment. It's more, how can we structure ourselves to grow more effectively, more efficiently, faster moving forwards. You talked a little bit about, it's not just marketing, it's not just sales, it's looking at the whole organization collectively. Can you talk a little bit about that process, right? Because a lot of businesses are really siloed and people are kind of off in their own teams. Can you talk a little bit about how you challenge the organizations you work with?
Yeah. I think you said it yourself. When departments are siloed, and this happens a lot, and I love that challenge, to be honest with you, because I really enjoy that chaos. Like, they don't think it's chaos. Most of the companies are like, marketing does marketing, sales does sales. I think it's very chaotic because they don't do growth together. They don't do business together. They do business on their own, and they're very, very siloed. I've seen this problem many, many times. How I tackle this usually, it's very basic in the beginning. It's, let's get together, let's sit down. What are the problems? We might do some talent canvases, like team canvases, where what's your strengths, what your weaknesses, what's the values that you value personally and professionally, and then start finding that people start sharing the same kind of values even outside work and even in work, right? And then we're starting to see that their goals are very similar as well, right? It's like if it's MRR, monthly recurring revenue, or total sales, for you it's the number of leads, and for customer support is the NPS score or customer support, right? Ratings and so on, Trustpilot and so on. At the end of the day, the goal is the same: it's to grow the company. When you put it that simple, you say, guys, we're all working for the same reason. We're trying to grow this company. Do we believe in the mission? That's very important. If you believe in the mission of the company, then things are even easier. But then what we do is, after done these talent canvas models or team canvases, the different kind of models that we do, different workshops that I do. Now I say we because I actually have a team behind me, and I started this company that we do that together with a bunch of other people, and what we do basically is that from there on we'll be able to even start running another workshop, which I call the organizational structure workshop, understanding each team member's activity. And when I call activities, basically your day-to-day processes, SOPs that you run, things that you have to get done. When we start mapping all this out, suddenly everybody sees how difficult somebody else's job is, and then suddenly they feel for that person. Suddenly empathy starts coming into play, right? And when that comes in, we're able to align these people. When we start to align these team members together, then their output is much greater on listing their activities. Then they suddenly see that there is no link. They're kind of doing something similar, but there's no link between them. They don't update each other between them. And then we start mapping out these links, right? So which activity is linked to which activity. And when we start doing that, automatically, there is many more steps to it. Automatically, you're starting to have a proper matrix on who's responsible for what, and who's expected of what, which KPI they should be tracking, and so on. And then when everybody starts seeing each other's role in the company, we're able to really, as mentioned earlier, align them, but actually document that, right? It's not just aligning in the back of your head and it's like, oh yeah, I know what he does. No, it's like I can actually open up a document, right, and look at who's doing which activity, which KPIs they're responsible of, which technology in our company they're using, and why are they using this, right? And then we're able to create little shapes, and the little shapes are basically teams, right? And then we start doing the shapes of management, of reporting, of layers of management. And then usually I try to flatten a bit the hierarchy. That's kind of one of the things that I really love to do as well. And in that way, we start becoming what I call a mission-driven community. Right, and when we become this mission-driven community, collectively, we suddenly put all our intelligence into play. Right, we put our creativity, we put our ideas, we start sharing the problems that we're facing in the company and what the company or my team, my department is facing day to day as well. And when that starts happening, this is where I figure that it's the best growth.
And so you just talked about something, and I know you've mentioned collective intelligence, right? You do a lot of research, obviously, the clients that you work on, that you've worked with in the past. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of collective intelligence and how you apply it in this framework?
Yeah, Nate. It's not a new topic now, I'm gonna say, because it's about 2-3 years that I'm very focused in it. Before that, I wasn't focused, but apparently I was kind of trying things the similar. But the last 2 to 3 years, I've definitely been like, okay, collective intelligence is a topic for me. And what collective intelligence is, what I've realized is basically we hire all these team members. We pay amazing salaries sometimes, hopefully pay good your team members because they're important, right? We bring these people together to make sure that we get the best out of them, to get their ideas, to get what they have, right? And what we do usually, it's not just siloing departments, but we also silo people, right? We put them in a box. Right, we really put them inside this box, and then we're like, think outside the box. You can't think outside the box if you're inside that box, right? But when we collectively know each other's work, that intelligence gets stronger. Because I don't think about marketing if I'm a marketing manager anymore. I think about my sales manager, and I think about my product manager as well. And together, we're able to discuss things that are much more valuable, right? So I have a framework as well that I'll touch up on it if you want, to be able to create this intelligence. I've been working on a framework that I've been testing with my clients. It's been working really, really well. And this is why I'm quite vocal about it now on a podcast and videos and webinars. It's because I'm writing a book about this, Nate. I'm writing a book about a framework, which I call the GCO framework. And, if you're interested, we can talk about that. But that is how I bring that collective intelligence together, making sure, first of all, everybody's aligned. Everybody knows what they're doing together and why they're doing it and how they can communicate. And then we implement this framework.
Right. I don't personally envy anyone who writes a book, because I don't know if I would have the mental stamina to do it. But I'd imagine when it's something that you've been talking about and preaching and evangelizing for years, probably makes it a little bit easier to write the book, I would venture to guess.
Well, yeah, hopefully. I mean, I had this is a bit interesting, is that I've had the chance, as you said, of being a professor, a teacher of university and usually master degrees, and I usually offer my students projects that are real projects. I don't tell them, oh, let's work on Coca-Cola's marketing or anything like that. I tell them, here are some projects I'm working on. Here's what's in my mind. Would you guys like to work on this? And usually I do a lot of project-based learning programs. That's the type of teaching that I do. So I had the chance on my business intelligence program course to ask all my students if they would like to get involved in a research for me, and the research was a few topics. One was collective intelligence, one was goal setting, one was challenges and issues in companies and how they can speak up about this, and so on. So we had about five topics. I'm not going to tell all of them because they'll be on the book, but I had a big chance to have about 25 very, very smart students that I still speak to, and they will be mentioned on my book, and they've brought the research to me, and we've discussed it for about it was a 7-week program, and we discussed this all the time. We did workshops around it. We did the research. So I would like to thank everybody that has been involved in this. It's not just me personally, because it's collective intelligence. So I want to make sure it's collectively put together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when should the book be expected to come out? Have you started writing it yet, or is it?
Yeah, I have lots of drafts. I have little drafts about every topic in places on my Notion workspace. I was gonna write it for the first half, but I became a father, so now I have. Thank you. So now I have a baby to take care of, and things have changed a little bit. But the goal is still this year, but it'll be the second half of the year, possibly the fourth quarter.
Very cool. Well, lots of exciting things happening. Well, so, you just talked a minute ago about, you come in, or the brands come in that you work with, you bring everybody to the table. Obviously, you don't know what you don't know. You help bridge the silos the teams have been in previously. But when you actually get down to it, what, in your experience, are some of the most common operational problems or challenges that these businesses realize that they're facing once they've all had that communication? Are there any similarities that you can think of?
Yeah, there is a lot. It's these links that I mentioned. Usually people row in different directions. Even if you put OKRs or certain goals, everybody's rowing in the different directions, and it's pulling the company to the side, pulling the company to the other side, and so on. And it's never, rowing like an Olympic team in the same direction. And to create that is to really to link everybody together and make sure that to take off some of the the double work. People work on things that we could just get together and work faster and achieve things faster, instead of you working on your own and me working on my own at the end. So that's number one. But the number two is that the same issues keeps happening in companies, and we do a lot of quick solves, like quick hacks to solve this, right? And we never document this. We never document it and then speak to every team member about it, communicate this, and actually put this in place. So the documentation is always a huge problem. What I call more the knowledge management. Knowledge management is never there, or is there, but is really, they're like, oh yeah, we have Jira, we have Asana, we have Confluence. It's like, oh great, what do you have there? You have technical documentation for your clients or for partners. You have tasks or how you start a project. That's great, but do you have what was the issues that we had last month? Do you have the decisions that were made in the last year, right? And this, I want to underline it. Why do I say this? I also Start putting a decision journal. I help my clients have a decision journal, right? Making sure that if you've made a decision, let's say a month, 6 months ago, you learn something from that, right? But we don't document these learnings. We don't have these learnings. We make decisions and we hope for the best. We're like, oh yeah, that worked, that didn't work. If you start documenting your decisions and you have a decision journal and you know why you've decided that and when are you going to check these decisions, you start learning from these, and these learnings has to be communicated, amplified to the whole team, and then we don't do the same errors. And we should do errors, we should fail, but let's keep failing on new things. Let's not keep failing on the same things that we fail. And that's kind of where I think that the big leverage is right away, is to make sure that you have a great knowledge management platform and document these decisions, collectively make these decisions as well. You know, as a CEO, usually what happens, the CEO says, yeah, I know, I'm going to make this decision. Great. You have a team of 40 people. Why don't you ask them, what do they think about this decision as well? Right, and you'll find some very interesting input from your team members. When that happens, I think that this is the common problem that companies don't do.
No, and that's absolutely fair. But so, you know, they come to this realization, they have a million things that they've identified that they could start doing or do better. How do they actually go about prioritizing, right? We've talked about OKRs and KPIs. Yeah. You know, some people listening obviously know what those are. Maybe talk a little bit about how those actually get used, and, you know, how do you build a meaningful goal to actually drive the company forward?
Yeah, so OKRs are obviously objectives and key results. KPIs are key performance indicators, so that I open up for everybody. And sorry, sometimes I forget that we have to open up these. Basically, KPIs, the key performance indicators, are numbers that you can't actually set goals. They're things that happen, right? That you look on a dashboard. There are numbers that are going up or down and so on. And objectives and key results are basically the objectives that you have. They're more aspirational, right? A bit more comes down from your mission, these objectives. And then you have key results. But key results obviously are a set of those KPIs that you're trying to bring 20% up, 10x it, or whatever, right? So that works quite well. But as you said, there is a prioritization missing there. To run OKR workshops and be able to implement OKRs takes, if you're new to them, it takes 2 to 3 quarters for a company to do them really well. And every quarter, it takes you a few sessions of like 2-3 hour meetings and so on with different departments to be able to set these objectives and key results. But still, the prioritization comes just from that team getting together and be like, yeah, these are, this was the objective of the company. These are the key results. We should drive to achieve these objectives. Again, it's very siloed as well. So the OKR methodology, it's very cool methodology. And I thank them for having this methodology, because that inspired me to create my own framework, which that's when I should open up is now, I think, is GCO, goals, challenges, and opportunities. This framework basically encompasses the OKRs. So we have objectives and key results are in goals. They're a little bit more simplified, right? But then I bring these 2 new levels into the framework, and that's challenges, right? The first one is challenges, and the challenges is basically your issue log, your problems that are happening in your company. You document them, you highlight them, you communicate them, you amplify them with your team, right? And then everybody starts seeing what are the challenges, what are the issues, what are the problems, what are the blockers in the company, right? And then the most creative part and the more fun part, I think, is the opportunities. It's your ideation session, it's your experimentation backlog, right? Here we create opportunities towards those challenges, towards those goals. We create new opportunities, and every team member gets a say, because it's not in a meeting only. It's in a framework that is in a tool, in a platform, that you're able to put these on your free time when you get inspired and so on. You can start writing the opportunities. You can tag it to a challenge. You can tag it to a goal, and suddenly we have the goals, the challenges, the problems that we're facing, and the opportunity to overcome these challenges. And that brings you to what I call sustainable growth.
Yeah. Well, I love. I've been reading a lot about this and hearing a lot recently, just the idea of frameworks, right? Where even just in your daily life, you can apply frameworks to just quickly solve problems, right? There are things that come up in your day to day that, you've probably solved a million times previously. If you can apply that framework, then you save that time and you can be confident in the decision you're making. So I love everything you're saying there. But so now if we're thinking in the context of, businesses that have to, transition their business model, right? Mm-hmm. Whether a company's focus is e-commerce or they traditionally sell retail, wholesale, whatever, every company's starting to have to focus on digital, right? That's pretty much just a given. Now, are there any specific shifts or restructurings that go on in these particular situations that you think are, maybe notable or, have unique commonalities from some of the other situations we've been talking about?
I'm going to get into tools, I think, and the platform software.
Yeah, please.
It's when a company wants to digitalize themselves, they really believe that everything are tools, and all tools are great tools, and they start being like, oh, we need tools here, we need tools here, we need tools here, we need these tools, we need that tools, and then again, they don't integrate these tools, so they silo these tools, right? The data is different. There's discrepancy between them. There's a lot of problems starts facing. So I think that this switch to digital world or switching business models, innovating on your business model is usually done reactively, right? It's because what's happening around the world, we're like, oh, okay, let's react ASAP, right? And when we react, we sadly don't make the best decisions, right? So I think that the best approach would be to be more proactive about it and actually strategize and understand which tool, for what reason, for who. Again, it goes back to the organizational structure a little bit. Which activities will be run by this tool? How will it be linked to another team member, and how it will link to the tool that they use, right? So I think that's the common problem there. And you've said it just before, and I didn't really answer that clearly, but it's the prioritization. It's a very difficult topic for everybody. Still for me as well, even personally with my family, even at work and so on. And there is amazing prioritization frameworks out there, right? There's RICE. You can check it out. It's a prioritization framework. There's ICE, which is impact, confidence, and ease. There's this type of prioritization frameworks out there available for us, right? And these prioritization frameworks, when we get good at them on scoring things, we do we take the right decisions, or we test the right experiment because we prioritize that. So this is why I think on GCO, I put inside the opportunities, you have to score every opportunity. You have to bring a prioritization framework, and you have to score every opportunity towards the challenges and towards the goals. And then you really find out what's going to be the most impactful and where you have the most confidence, and the easiest idea or the opportunity is going to be the one that wins, right? And you can do that, as you said, for even your personal life. Right, you can do it if you're creating an event for your wedding. I'm starting to design my wedding. That's why I just got into that topic. We have a baby, but thanks to COVID, we still couldn't get married. So even in that, I start using frameworks, and I'm obsessed about frameworks, Nate, because you've said it yourself. If you know a framework and you get good at this framework, it's a tool set. It's like having a Swiss knife in your pocket, right? You're like, oh, I have a framework for that. Oh, I have a framework there. What does it do? Less anxiety. Right? So you're not anxious anymore because you know what you're going to do. You're going to run the framework, and whatever comes out of the framework, that's what you're going to do, right? So it really gives us more space in our head so that we can focus on more the high cognitive tasks, right? Which is more creative things. And the rest should be framework, should be processed anyways, because, those are the things that the machines, hopefully one day, will do that for us automatically. And, everybody gets scared, and they're like, oh, what if the machines take my job? No, they're not going to take your job. They're going to do the silly things that we should not keep repeating and keep doing all the time. Less humans. Be creative. Let's design the world. Let's design the future. That's what we should be focusing on. But sadly, we are firefighters all the time. And, and we're always very reactive. We have to change our mindset to be a bit more proactive.
No, I love that. And I think that encompasses it really well, right? People are presented with a problem and try to solve it. They aren't necessarily always thinking proactively to the future of, what do I need to arm myself with, right? One other topic that I wanted to make sure we touch on is the idea of like a rebrand, right? And I think that's a very large overarching topic, but, I would position that, once a company has gone through a lot of this process, they've restructured themselves, they probably need to go through a rebrand. But that could mean a lot of different things. So maybe what in your mind is a rebrand really, especially in this context?
There's a couple of things here. If you already had a brand, and that means that hopefully you have certain some sort of community, right? You have clients, you have partners, you have team members, they're community, right? They know your brand, and if you've been successful or not too successful, and that's why you want to rebrand, that's okay, right? On collective intelligence, you have a few things, right? One is crowdsourcing. Right, so you can actually crowdsource your idea about your new brand. You can ask them. You can create surveys. You can send out surveys to clients. If you're active on forums like Reddit, Quora, you can ask others. If you're on other communities, Slack groups, and so on, you can ask them as well. And really, don't design your brand because you had the vision in the middle of the night and you're like, "All right, we're rebranding to this." That's great. It's a great start, but make sure to kind of sanity check that, right? And make sure that other people sees what you had with that vision. And so that's the first thing that, don't rebrand just because you want to rebrand. Rebrand because there is a reason to rebrand, right? And then try to understand what would how would people react with this new rebrand, right? What does your new brand mean to them? Right, show them some design, some drafts, and tell them this is where we're going and this is why we're going. Make sure that your brand comes down from your mission, vision, values as well, right? Because then it's going to be a better brand. It's going to more, and then you're going to have it longer. Hopefully, you won't have to rebrand again, right? But rebranding, it's a pain. It is a pain. I've done it. I've done it multiple times. I've done it in some really, really very, very bad conditions as well. And it really means switching your messaging, your logo, your colors to something else. And if you already have a community that believe in that, you might lose them in the switch, right? In the rebranding. So make sure that you're not losing them, and that's by bringing them with you and saying, "Hey, let's do this together." Right? Let's do this collectively. And if we do that, you're gonna be much more successful. And as you know, there is this build in public and so on. Rebrand in public. I haven't seen rebrands in public yet. Rebrand in public. Let's see that. I think that's going to be much more successful.
What would be your favorite example of a rebrand? Whether it's one that you've partaken in, or just one historically that you like or that you think is important.
Oh wow! Okay, so I'm on the spot with this one. So historically, maybe not, but I'm gonna go with something that I've done. I was forced to with my team. I had just moved to Barcelona. This was about six years ago. I just moved to Barcelona from London, UK, to Barcelona, Spain, and a company basically got me a job from London, and they said, "Hey, we want you to move here. We want you to move your family." Back then, it was just my fiance and I. She was my girlfriend back then, and we had a dog. And we're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll do the move." And we did the move. I started the first day. It was an awesome day. It was sunny Barcelona after London. Just a 7-minute walk from my home to the office. Got my croissants, orange juice. It's sunny and so on. I come to the office. They do a little bit of an onboarding, welcome, but we kind of did that on calls before, anyways. And they're like, "Well, welcome. Your first challenge is you have 2 weeks to rebrand the whole company." I was like, "What?" I was like, "What? What are you saying?" And they're like, "Yeah, you got 2 weeks because in 2 weeks we have a very big conference, and we just got a letter from an American company that they're gonna want to sue us if we don't change our brand." We were called back then Network Polygraph. It was a big data for telcos technology, and we were called Network Polygraph, and we had 2 weeks to rebrand because if not, we're gonna not miss our spot on the conference, but we would look with the old brand and then we're gonna rebrand after, or it would look very messy.
Right.
So I had this 2 weeks time frame to rebrand, create a new website, a logo, new colors, launch it, make sure everybody knows it, all the clients, everybody knows when they log into the dashboard why it changed and so on. We had 2 weeks. It was the best challenge I've had, one of the best challenges I had in my life, to be honest. And and we did it successfully. Yes, the company became Talaya, and then I think about 2-3 years later we got acquired, and it was quite a success story, that rebrand.
That's awesome. And God, I feel like we could probably have a whole other conversation just about that example. But how the one question I have, how did you, or whoever ultimately did this, quantify the outcome of that, right? Of the success, or the overall, how was it measured quantitatively?
Yeah, well, wow, that's a great question. I mean, our first goal wasn't to quantify that. Our first goal was not to get sued for millions. Right. That was the
it's a secondary thought.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was like, if we get sued 10 million, that was quite important. But how we did it, I think we went to the conference, and it was a bit more not pure tracking online because we were in a conference. It was offline, right? We kind of quantified on seeing the people who comes to our booth and the people that didn't know that we've done it, right? Because maybe they didn't see our newsletter, or they were not in our newsletter, but they knew our company, especially because of the local tech scene. And they were like looking at it, and then look at the product. They're like, oh, aren't you Network Polygraph? And we're like, yeah. And we changed to Talaya. They're like, oh, wow, this looks much better. And we're like, oh, why do you think this looks better? And then we would ask questions. So it wasn't, I think it was more qualitative, right? But how we did is at the end of the conference, we had a lot of leads in quantity that we didn't expect, even previously with the brand that we had before, the year before. So we realized that it spoke more to people because there was a meaning more. Talaya meant a watchtower, right? In the local language, in the Catalan language. And the watchtower, basically the technology we had, it was like a dashboard that watched the tower of internet in your office, in your office, or you have 50 offices, and they would track the data and understand, and you'd see into the data. So we really created a story behind it about the watchtower, Talaya, and how it does that. Network Polygraph was good. It was very technical, and it spoke a lot to network engineers, which that was our target as clients. But the decision makers weren't them, right? The decision makers were the CEOs, were the COOs, were the CTOs, right? And suddenly the watchtower, the Talaya, the history of it behind it spoke much more to them. And we also possibly quantified the switch, because we actually had a new platform that came with it because of the brand and so on. We did a duplicate, and we switched 100% of our clients, and that was, I think, that was like, I remember we went to karaoke. I took the CEO and the CEO. We went to karaoke, and we had a great time.
Then you had to celebrate the big win. No, I love that, and you raise a very interesting point, right? That people are often thinking about who, well, especially in the B2B world, who they're selling to. But a lot of the times, it's not the end user, right? It's the person who actually is ultimately going to sign on the dotted line. So I think that was an interesting point that you made there at the end. Well, Tim, this has been a fascinating conversation. Personally, I've learned a lot. Where can our listeners get in touch with you if anything we talked about resonated, or they want to pick your brain a bit more?
Yeah. I used to give a bunch of links and so on, but I don't do that anymore. Basically, this year my goal is to 10x my LinkedIn reach. So I will give my LinkedIn is Tim, Tim, and Kakir, which is Cakir. So if you put Tim Kakir on LinkedIn, you'll find me possibly very quickly, and follow me there, because I'm active every day. I have a post every day now. I also post about my newsletter there. You can find on the About section my newsletter and other things that I share, but the main channel is my LinkedIn at the moment. So please go to LinkedIn, follow me. I also have a free link there to book a meeting with me, where you can tell me some of your problems, challenges, and I can try to problem solve with you quickly, or I can at least try to direct you into the right direction.
I love that. One thing that the community, the e-commerce, digital commerce community needs is people who are just there to be a resource and to help, right? So I love that. We'll make sure to include it in the show notes. But Tim, been a fascinating conversation that we've had, and look forward to having you back on the show in the future.
Thank you very much, Nate, and everybody listening and watching. I'd love to come back when the book is ready.
Yes, absolutely. We'll make that happen.
It's a great chat.
Thanks for sharing your time with us, Tim.
Thanks.
That's it for this episode of E-Commerce with Coffee, powered by Amber Engine. If you haven't gotten your fix yet, be sure to get more e-commerce brand secrets on our website at amberengine.com. And don't forget to subscribe for more episodes.